I got Casey Conroy on the radar today. First of all, are you a little tired? You've had a long day.
I think like my adrenaline is keeping me. Probably I'm gonna crash after this, but no, yeah, we've been doing so many fun things.
How late were you performing last night?
We went on at 9.
Okay.
And then the main act went on around like 11. So
Okay.
we were home. We didn't go to sleep till like 2 though. 'Cause
I'm
you get
sure.
excited and then you just can't sleep anymore.
So how are you liking New York so far? Because I know you're from Florida, so this is like a big change than from Orlando.
I love it. And I've always been a huge New York City fan. My family lives in Jersey, so like whenever I go up
Oh, really?
for Christmas or stuff like that, we always like to come and spend a day in the city. But it's a whole different experience like when you're working in New York City and when you're actually like I always come here to like shop and eat the food. But when you get to come and be a part of it, and be working in it and contribute in a way, it's such a cool feeling.
How are the trains? Because I know you had a little difficulty getting here.
Well, luckily Willie knows what he's doing. Kind of, he got us lost today.
Nah, he knows what he's doing. Look at him. He knows what he's doing. Give him some more credit for that.
I'm joking. I told him on the way here. I was like, he was like, "See, we got the hang of." I'm like, I don't have the hang of anything. I was lost, but I think when you have somebody who knows and you can just follow them, then it's
that's how I used to navigate the city when I was younger. It's just like my friends who were from the city would just be like, this is what we got to do. This is like when I started college and I was like living in the city, I literally had no idea what half my friends were saying. But then like eventually over time, I got the hang of it and then like I memorized everything, which I never thought I'd be able to do.
Yeah, 'cause that's what I was thinking. Looking at the signs and everything, I'm like, this is another language. I don't know how people do that.
So was it different like your performance in New York City, like different from like the vibe of like, if your performances from like Orlando and Florida or wherever else you performed?
Totally. I mean, there's such a great culture in New York City, as you know. Like, there's a great music culture, and people are so unique, and everybody has their own style, and everybody's so encouraging of the arts, And Orlando's awesome, but I think it's still building up that music culture.
Right.
So sometimes it's like hard to get people to come to shows every once in a while, but in New York, like I said, there's just such a culture of it that people are so encouraging. People want to come out and support music, and you can tell, like, when you're in that room, the vibe is so strong and it's so inspiring, But it's very different than Orlando, just because you're out of your comfort zone in some ways. Orlando's home, so it just like
it's kind of like the feeling of starting over at like a new place. Like you can kind of be like whoever you want, or you can like you don't really have to worry about. You don't have like those stresses of like running into somebody because there's nobody here that like you would really like have prior interactions with. Which that must have been pretty cool because it's like you're touching a whole new group of people now.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's nobody. Well, it was cool because the show we played last night, a lot of the artists were from Orlando originally. So a lot of friends that we knew from Orlando like came to the show last night, and friends that still live in Orlando like happened to be in New York City, and we got to like meet up. So last night was like cool because it was a little bit of both worlds. We got to bring them both together. But yeah, you get to, and I think New York City like makes you feel a certain way. Like as an artist, like you're like, I'm in New York City, So it's you totally have a different vibe.
I always hear that from when I like speak to artists who aren't originally from here. They're always like, New York City makes me feel like such a certain way.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, are you sure? Have you been on the subway for, have you ever gotten stuck on the subway for like an hour in the summer when it's hot? I don't think you're gonna feel that way for what I'm
forever.
saying?
No, well, yeah, I had like a glimpse of that as we were like running through the subways, and you're like sweating, and you're like, this is not as glamorous as people.
It's kind of like it's like how people like romanticize the city, and then they get here and they're like, and they love it at first. They're like, this is the greatest thing ever, and then like a few subway rides in, you're like, maybe you're like,
it's so funny. I always talk to people about that because I'm like a huge movie addict. I love movies.
Okay.
And especially like, New York City is always the star of so many amazing movies. And so I still have that very like Sex in the City romanticized view of New York City.
Right.
And then I always talk to people like, like a lot of people I know that lived here are like, just you get through a winter and you're like, okay, it's not as romantic as it seems,
The winters, it's like, it's beautiful when the snow first touches the ground. And then after the snow touches the ground, you're just over it.
Yeah, and I like to pretend I like the cold or the hot. Like, I like to be like, oh, I'm a hot person, I'm a cold person. No, I'm just like a perfect temperature
like
person.
A fall person.
I'm like
a
a 73
yeah.
windy but sunlight. I'm like that kind of person. I'm not like, I like some people like, I love the cold, or like I can take the heat. I'm like, no, I just like it perfect.
You like that 60-degree weather, and then that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas and I don't have much luck of that in Orlando.
Right,
anyways, 'cause
right.
it's
Which is
just,
also nice because at least you don't have to really worry about bundling up all year round and stuff like that,
oh,
or
but
having to buy different wardrobes, or having to
yeah,
switch up your closet every couple months, like
no,
we'd
because
have to do here.
just stays at like 90s all of the
Yeah,
time.
you can wear like the same clothes year round and nobody will question you. But
Yeah.
meanwhile here you see someone walking with like shorts in like December with like boots on, you're like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I think sometimes like at least in the winter you can put on more clothes. You know what I mean? When it's
Yeah.
like gets like 100 in the hundreds in Orlando, and you can.
That's
like,
always an argument. It's like in the winter, at least you can put on more clothes, but in the
yeah,
summer,
like you
it's
can
like
only
you
put
can
on
only
so
take off so
little
many layers before
layers,
it's like
you
you're doing a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
We got off track. So back to music. Something I wanted to ask you
hmm
was during your performance today, you were talking about how you recently booked a studio for 3 days, right?
Yeah.
And you came out with five. I was the numbers between 5 and 3. I was trying to juggle them in my head. So what was that like? Is that something you do often, where you'll like book a studio for 3 days and you'll just lock yourself in the studio and like you'll just write and record, or is it something that you do every couple months or every now and then?
Not at all. It is a special treat. So we do like all of this, me and
That's like your
Willie and
guilty pleasure a
Lewis.
little bit?
Exactly. Yeah, we do all of this in our bedrooms,
Mhm.
and, and we're like always tripping over cables and like trying to get in the
Mhm.
vibe. Just like making it work. So it's like a special treat when we get to go into like nice studios and stuff like that.
Mm.
And like I was saying on the performance, about a month ago, I just got into this season where I was writing like crazy. And so Willie was like, oh, let's just go in the studio and book it for 3 days and just let all this inspiration come out.
Now, did you like live in the studio? Like when you book it for 3 days,
No.
do you like live there?
It was
or do
12
you...
hours.
Oh, okay.
So we got
Well, I mean,
in at
it's kind of
like 2, and then we were
Mhm.
finished at 2. Something, like 12 to 12, or I can't remember exactly what it
Yeah.
was. But so, yeah, and then we would go home, we would come back. But it was unbelievable. Like, it's amazing how, at home, sometimes by the time you set everything up and you put all the cables
Mhm.
in, and like you just lose the vibe. But to be able to have all of our toys there
Right.
and everything set up and be like, let's just record this and let's just try this,
Mhm.
the inspiration just flows so naturally and so easy. And we had such a blast. And it was funny because we weren't sure what was going to happen when we go in. We're like, let's not keep our expectations too high.
Mhm.
And the second we got in there, like the first day we had a song and we had our friends coming over recording bass and drums. And
That's awesome.
the next day, one of my favorite songs from the EP, it's a funny story, but when we were setting up and sound checking, we started playing these like 2 chords, just playing around like
Mhm.
to sound check, and we wound up writing this song in like 20 minutes to those two chords.
That's
And
awesome.
it's like one of my favorite songs from the EP. It will be an EP. The 5 songs will be
Right,
an EP,
right.
eventually. And it's just amazing that there's an opportunity for that to happen
Mhm.
when you're in such a creative space.
Yeah.
It
That's
was
so
really
cool. Now, since we're on the topic of the
Yeah.
EP, so it's dropping this fall.
Yes, this fall.
Now, I know Tropical is one of the singles off of it.
Actually, no.
It's not?
It's not. Tropical's a single that already got released.
Got it.
So it released like 2 weeks ago, but the EP will have its own single.
Got it. It's going to be 5 songs long?
Yeah, we're between 4 and 5, but at
Mhm.
least 4.
So is the chunk of those songs going to be from that 3 days in the
Yes,
studio?
they're all.
Oh, they're all from the 3 days in the
Yeah,
studio. That's perfect.
That's kind of like the idea behind it is we wanted to have that story to tell,
Mhm.
to be like, we even like played around with like name ideas that
Yeah, I was about to say that would be like a really cool
like
a
3
really cool
days or
concept for
something.
for an EP.
Yeah, it's like a great branding. I say like excuse, but it's like a great way to brand the EP
Right.
to be like, hey, this is an EP, and we actually did this
Mhm.
in 3 days. Like all the ideas and concepts came from
Mhm.
these 3 days. We went in the studio and we just let whatever happened
Right.
happen. And so yeah,
That's awesome. So the new song that you performed today, can you tell me like a little about it? Cause was that your favorite song out of
Tropical?
it? No, not Tropical. The other
Don't
one.
Be
The
Sad.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about Tropical, but I
Okay,
want to talk
sorry.
about
yeah, Tropical. I mean, Don't Be Sad. It's funny because I think we were playing around. That's probably will be the single from the EP.
It was
'cause
super dope.
We didn't
Big fan.
I think sometimes like when you're in it, you don't really realize kind of which songs take which place everywhere.
Right.
Like you're just kind of like in the vibe, and then when you step back, you're like, wow, this is a great song. Like this, and you don't realize it as much when you're like in the moment.
Because of course, off the rip, you're gonna be like, every song is like,
yeah, exactly,
amazing.
exactly.
and like you don't really know which one you want to be like the lead or take the lead out of the other 4 or 5 because they're all just so perfect.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. And it was funny because when we were getting ready to come to New York City and we were like about to practice our acoustic set, we just started playing it, we started playing around. We wound up doing it. I'm like, wow, this song is awesome. Like this is really cool. And we vibed really hard with it. But the funny thing with that song is, even though like we did the chunk of the song and the idea mainly came from that 3 days in the studio, I started writing that song. It was one night I was having this conversation, and it was kind of like one of those those discouraging days when you're kind of like down. You're like, I don't know, if we have like all the right songs, and you're kind of like in that weird vibe and mood. And after that conversation, I started playing around, and that's the idea that I came with out of that conversation, which is funny because the song's called Don't Be Sad. So it's like trying to like probably uplift myself, even though this song is about, you're talking to a guy and you're like, I'm tired of you being sad all the time.
Sounds like the idea for the song sounds like an early 2000s like punk rock song.
Yeah, it's totally.
Which I fuck with heavy.
Cool,
I like that.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like one of those like, come on, man, like stop being sad and crying on me all the time. Like I'm tired of it. It stinks. And but I guess like in some way it was really my way of telling myself that, like come on, don't be sad. And so I just had that idea that we got in the studio, and it really became the song that it is. But so it has like a cool backstory for me.
That's dope. Now, can you tell us anything else about the other songs that are going to be on the album, on the EP? Or
totally, yeah. It's funny because we went into the studio with like no ideas, no like idea of like this is what we're gonna do. This is the kind of genre. This is the kind of sound. We just let ourselves be super free, and letting whatever happen. And we found that it became super inspired by a lot of our influences.
Okay.
Without like, we listened back and we're like, wow, we can hear all of these albums that made a huge difference in our lives. Like a lot of big old school records like Toto and Bee Gees, but all the way to like Depeche Mode and Tears for Fears. And so in a lot of ways, it's like, what would those old school sounds sound like in like today's pop music and things
That's
like
cool.
that. So
yeah, because I noticed like in some of your songs that you've released, I've noticed like some 80s like kind of like sync beats
cool
in
that
it.
You say that.
There's like some 80s syncs in the background that I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I remember like, because I was doing my research, and I heard that that you're very inspired because of like the music you listen to and the music your parents listen to.
Yeah.
And I was like, I like how she added that in there, because like the 80s syncs just kind of like, it's very like in style now too, to like, kind of bring things from like the 80s and the 90s back. So I thought that was kind of interesting how you added that into your music.
Yeah. So my dad is from Ireland, so I grew up on a lot of like 80s music from Europe, like a lot of European 80s pop. A lot of like Duran Duran, Aha is like one of my favorite bands of all time. And so that was just kind of when I first started getting the music, that was just the vibe I was always in. That's what I really related to. And it's funny because I have to like force myself not to put so many lines in my songs. Like that's what I am so drawn to, is I love like those main, especially synth lines that are like, that's such a standout line. And I would have one on the verse, I would have one on the chorus, I would have them all the time if I could. I'm like, just pick one. But yeah, I love lines for some reason. Like when you have a song, no matter how simple the line is, when you have something that can be repetitive and like something that people can get into, it just creates such a vibe and so much intensity, I feel like, to the song.
Right.
There's so many things I love from the 80s. Like they had such great pop music. I mean, obviously pop music today is evolving like crazy and it's amazing, but the 80s is just like, the pop songs were just off the wall. They were amazing.
Right, yeah.
Like Take On Me is like one of my favorite songs of all time. And it's a brilliant pop song, like the Aha just came out with that acoustic. I don't know if you're a fan of Aha, but they just came out with this acoustic album where they played all of their big hits, just like an acoustic show.
Oh, really? That's dope.
You have to check out the album. It's amazing. But they did this version of Take On Me that just allows you to be like, this is actually a gorgeous song. I love music like that people can dance to and like not have to think much about it and just be free and love it.
Right.
But if you like take it down to its roots, it's like such a gorgeous, like well-written song. I think that's amazing. I feel like a lot of 80s music is kind of like that.
That's awesome. I love this little 80s rant that you just went on. That was
Sorry,
great.
yeah.
No, it's fine.
Like,
it's perfect. I liked it.
Everybody that knows me, I'm like an 80s like if I could just like only wear 80s style clothes and like watch 80s movies, I'm like, it's embarrassing.
It's okay. I feel the same way about like 90s clothes. Like I love like going through shopping to like the 90s, like the sports memorabilia from like the 90s is like that's like my favorite thing. Even this is kind of like
Yeah, totally.
90s-ish. So I want to talk about Tropical. And before I talk about Tropical, I wanted to say that our camera girl said that you sounded like you reminded her of Camila Cabello when you sang on it.
No way.
Yeah, she did say that.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah.
I love her.
And I was also when I was also listening to the other songs that you've released, I was getting like a little like Lana Del Rey vibes and stuff like that too.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah. So do you like kind of like take inspiration from like new pop too when you make these songs, or?
Totally, yeah. I mean, right now my like on repeat, I guess you could call it a pop album, is the Kali Uchis album.
Okay, yeah,
I'm
her album's
obsessed
dope.
with that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
And I know this one is not pop; it's more like country pop. But is the Casey Musgraves album?
Right.
Those are like my two.
I think Kali Uchis is kind of like pop / R&B. Kind of like
yeah,
falls into that, like
is.
that weird like.
It's kind of like that anti-pop
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
That's like what I'm super inspired
Mhm.
right now. Is like they call it anti-pop, but for me, it's becoming in a lot of ways. I feel like it's becoming the new pop.
Right.
In some ways, it's like so fresh
Mhm.
and forward. So I've been taking a lot of inspiration from that, but also I'm a huge Dua Lipa fan. I love her pop music. I think she's great. So. Yeah.
So where'd the concept for Tropical come from?
Yeah.
Because I love like how, well, the song itself, but I also love how you've been like promoting it with all like the
Yeah.
visuals and stuff like that. I feel like it all came together like really nicely, and it all just
Thank
kind of like
you.
worked out. So where'd the idea and like the concept and all that stuff come from when
So-
you were recording it?
So the song was a verse I wrote years ago that I loved, and I always wanted to do something with it, but I was never vibing with it. And I think one night I like forced myself, like sit down, pay it to like really try.
Because you
it.
might have something there.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I think I might have like changed the key or
Mhm.
something like that, and I right away started vibing with it. And I wrote this story about falling in love with like a Latin guy
Mhm.
that makes you feel like you're on vacation all the time. You know,
Right.
like no matter where you are, he kind of makes it tropical. And like
Mhm.
the line in the song is like, everywhere I go, it's so cold. And then it's like, but you keep it tropical,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah.
everywhere I go. So that's the idea of it. And so for the branding, I really wanted this concept where it wasn't actually in the tropics. Like it wasn't like your beach photo shoot or like rainfall, like it wasn't like very straight up like that. My initial idea was actually like to go like on the streets, like somewhere like in Orlando and just like on the side of the road and like set up all these like blow ups and stuff.
that'd
and
be
like
really
sit on a
cool.
chair and like have a drink, and that you're like making this tropical atmosphere in a place that's like super not tropical,
Right.
you know? But like what this usually happens in Orlando, it rained like crazy the day we were gonna shoot
No way.
we were gonna do that photo shoot. So we last minute like just went to like every Dollar Tree and like dollar store in Florida and got like every blow up we could find. Good thing it was summer, so we could find like, a bunch of summer things. And we just went into the studio and we got that yellow backdrop that you
Right.
can see in most of the photos, and then just tried to put as many like props and things like that into the photos. And then the concept was that like everything would kind of be like a cutout and like pasted onto another photo, just kind of keeping with this idea that you're bringing like the tropical into other places, if
Right.
that makes sense, you know? So
No,
I
get it.
didn't want it because that's like a very popular concept right now. It's like that.
Because I feel like it
Caribbean
looked like a
music.
photo shoot, but it also didn't look like
Exactly,
a photo
like
shoot. It was
that's,
like
like,
this nice
totally
like middle
the
ground in
vibe.
between. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted it to kind of feel like we were trying to make it tropical, you know, if that makes any sense, because that's the idea of this song. It's like
Yeah.
even when it's not tropical, you make it. So I didn't want it to be like your straight up regular, you know, very like beachy or whatever vibe. I wanted it to feel like we were trying to like make it fake tropical. It's really kind of,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
So are there gonna be any music videos? I feel like a music video for Tropical would be really dope.
We want to. I mean,
Or even for the
definitely.
EP, whatever.
Oh
you know.
yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know if you saw. We have a music video, a lyric video out for Tropical.
Right, I did see
which
the
was
lyric video
cool
for
'cause
Tropical.
It was.
And I saw the other music video where you're in the
the
red
that's
jumpsuit.
That's a whole
yeah.
other story. But the Tropical one, it was cool. We got to work with this awesome girl in Orlando, and it was just a really great opportunity to showcase all of the visuals that we got, because there was so many, like with all of the blow ups and the
Yeah,
cool
it'd be a shame to not
photos.
use them for something, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I think if we get to do the video for Tropical, I just want it to be something really fun, you know, like let a lot of dancing, and hopefully we could do like an end of this. I know summer's already pretty much
Yeah,
coming
it's
to
really,
an
but
end,
it's good,
but
you know.
I think it kind of
Summer's never
works.
over in Orlando.
True, but I think it kind of works because then you could be bringing the tropical into winter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That'd be kind of
So-
cool if you went to like different cities and like you did it. That'd be cool.
Yeah, so maybe it will work out.
So wait, what's the story behind the
Yeah.
the jumpsuit?
So it was inspired by I don't know if you know this TV show, Casa del Papel.
I've heard of it.
So it was inspired by that, like where they wear this jumpsuits and these masks, and so we wanted to like do a little like tribute to that. But it was this idea that we had just robbed a bank,
Okay.
or just like we had done some kind of crime. And this is like my way of thinking of it. I think like everybody could get their own story or like own opinion of what they think is happening in the music video because we don't really say.
Right.
But it's this idea that we had just like robbed a bank and then something had kind of gone wrong. So we're fighting with each other like this is gonna give, like something is not gonna work out, like we're gonna get caught. And it's just like that like intense anger of being like, oh my gosh, like what's gonna happen? Like I can't believe you messed up. You're gonna mess it up for us. And we went to this rooftop in Orlando. We wanted to record it at sunset. And it was this crazy week in Orlando where it rained every single day, like 24/7, the whole week. And we rescheduled the shoot twice. And then we were finally like, let's just do it at sunset because it's the only other time, I mean, sunrise because it's the only other time that you can get that kind of lighting. So we woke up at like 3 a.m. We got dressed. We went down there to do this shoot and we finally got it. But it was such a long, crazy week trying to make that happen.
That's such a funny story behind it.
Yeah, we had so much fun though. Like it was the first time in a music video that I was like having a character in some, like I wasn't
Like you had to
necessarily
act.
being myself.
Yeah.
Which was weird, but it was very freeing in a lot of ways because you get to be like, how would this, like it's not Casey, you know, it's like how would this character react?
How would they handle the situation?
Because I feel like as a songwriter, we're really just storytellers, you know, and I wanted, what is this story? You know, like this is what she's saying and this is what she's singing and what would that look like in a music video? So it was fun. We had a lot of fun with that one.
That's dope. So before you go, let the people know. Well, I mean, you can't really say when the EP's dropping, but you can give like a little time frame.
Yeah.
And where they can find you, they can find your music, all that stuff.
Yeah, so I'm going to have an EP dropping sometime this fall. And if you want to listen to my music, you can find it pretty much everywhere, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, wherever you like to listen. And you can follow me on social media at I am Casey Conroy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming
Thank you
today.
for having me.
Make sure you
Thank
get that new EP and listen to Tropical now.